The Galactic Concordat had ruled the stars for 12 million years. 4,000 species lived under its laws. They traded together. They built great cities on 1,000 worlds. They believed they had created perfect peace. Ambassador Velkith of the Sithrani Dominion stood in the Great Assembly Hall. The hall was enormous. It could hold 10,000 beings from across the galaxy. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. This was the heart of galactic civilization. Today, they were discussing the humans again. Velkith hated these meetings. He was tall and thin, with silver scales that shimmered when he moved. His species had been part of the Concordat for 9 million years. They understood how things worked. They understood order and hierarchy and proper behavior. Humans understood nothing. "They have done it again," Velkith announced to the assembly. His voice echoed through the vast chamber. "The humans have interfered in the Korath sector. They stopped illegal slave transport. They freed the cargo and destroyed the ship." Murmurs spread through the gathered ambassadors. Some were angry. Others seemed almost amused. High Arbiter Morvan raised one of his 4 hands for silence. He was ancient even by galactic standards. His species had helped found the Concordat itself. His skin was like old leather, and his eyes held the weight of countless centuries. "The humans claim the slaves were taken illegally," Morvan said. His voice was calm and tired. "They say children were among them." "Children of a lesser species," Velkith replied. "The Korath have legal rights to. The humans do not recognize those rights." Morvan sighed. "They never have. They never will." This was the problem with humanity. They had only discovered faster than light travel 800 years ago. They were infants compared to the ancient races. Yet they acted as if their opinions mattered. They acted as if their strange morality applied to everyone. They were loud. They were emotional. They formed bonds with species far beneath their station. They rushed into conflicts that had nothing to do with them. When other species accepted the natural order of things, humans asked why. Always why. "They treat death as an inconvenience," Velkith continued. "They mourn their enemies. They adopt the orphan young of hostile species. They convince the Kethvori swarm to stop eating sentient beings and take up philosophy instead." Philosophy. The Kethvori had been a useful threat for millions of years. They kept certain sectors in line. Now, they wrote poetry and debated the meaning of existence. It was embarrassing. "What do you suggest?" Morvan asked. "Sanctions, restrictions. We must teach them their place." But even as Velkith spoke, he knew it would not work. Nothing worked with humans. They had been sanctioned before. They had been restricted and punished and isolated. They simply did not care. They smiled and nodded and then did exactly what they wanted. The worst part was that other species were starting to admire them. The younger races watched humanity with strange fascination. They saw humans stand up to ancient powers and survive. They saw humans treat everyone as equals, regardless of age or strength. They saw humans fight impossible battles and somehow win. It was dangerous. It threatened everything the Concordat had built. After the assembly ended, Velkith walked through the station's observation deck. Stars filled the void outside. Somewhere out there, human ships were probably causing more trouble. Human colonies were probably growing. Human ideas were probably spreading. He did not understand them. How could a species so young be so troublesome? How could they look at the perfect order of the galaxy and see something wrong with it? His assistant approached with a data tablet. "Ambassador, there is news from the rim sectors." "What now?" 3 outposts have gone silent. Deep space stations near the galaxy's edge. Velkith waved his hand dismissively. "Equipment failure. Pirates. Send a repair crew." The humans have offered to investigate. They say their ships are closer. Of course they had. Humans always wanted to help. They could never simply mind their own business. Decline their offer. The Concordat handles its own affairs. His assistant bowed and left. Velkith stared at the stars. In the deep blackness between galaxies, something seemed to move. He blinked, and it was gone. Just shadows. Just the emptiness of space. He thought no more about it. Far away. On a human colony world, a young girl looked up at the same stars. Her name was Helena Vance, and she was 12 years old. Her parents were farmers. They grew food for the colony and shipped it to other worlds. She loved the stars. She wanted to explore them someday. She wanted to meet new species and learn their languages and understand their ways. Her mother called her inside for dinner. Helena took one last look at the sky. The stars seemed so peaceful, so eternal. She did not know that in 30 years she would stand before the Galactic Assembly as an admiral. She did not know that she would watch her people betrayed by those same peaceful stars. She did not know that she would lead humanity into the darkness and silence that they, galaxy, so desperately wanted. She did not know that something was watching from the void between galaxies. Something old. Something hungry. Something that had been waiting for 12 million years. The galaxy had forgotten the old enemy. They had forgotten why some species were necessary. They had forgotten what humanity was truly for. That they would remember. Soon, they would all remember. 30 years passed. The galaxy continued as it always had. The Concordat maintained its order. The ancient species kept their power. And humanity remained a nuisance that everyone tolerated but nobody respected. Admiral Helena Vance stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Dawn's Promise. She was 42 years old now. Her hair was gray at the temples. Her eyes had seen too much. She had spent her life serving the Concordat. She had fought their wars. She had protected their trade routes. She had bled for species that barely acknowledged her existence. Today, everything would change. The message had arrived 3 hours ago. Kepler's hope was gone. 12 million people. Her parents, her sister, her nieces and nephews, everyone she had grown up with, everyone she had ever loved. Gone. The Morvathi Consortium had claimed the system. The Concordat had reclassified it as a resource extraction zone. The humans living there were considered biological contamination. So the Morvathi had sterilized the planet. They had used orbital bombardment. They had burned cities. They had poisoned the water. They had left nothing alive. Not the people. Not the animals. Not even the plants. 12 million human beings. Treated like insects, and the Concordat had approved it. The paperwork was in order. The legal procedures had been followed. Everything was perfectly proper. Helena felt something break inside her. Something that had been holding her together for decades. Something that had allowed her to smile at ambassadors who despised her. Something that had let her serve a civilization that saw her people as lesser beings. That something was hope. Admiral? Her first officer approached carefully. The Assembly has agreed to hear our case. Helena laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Of course they have. They will hear us. They will deliberate. They will conclude that no laws were broken. We have to try. Do we? She looked at her crew. Humans, all of them. They had served the Concordat faithfully. They had died for alien worlds. They had sacrificed everything for a galaxy that gave them nothing in return. No more. 3 weeks later, Helena stood before the Galactic Assembly. The same great hall. The same crystal pillars. The same ancient species looking down at her with barely hidden contempt. Ambassador Velkith was there. He looked older now, but his arrogance remained unchanged. High Arbiter Morvan sat in his elevated seat, his face unreadable. The Concordat has reviewed your complaint, Morvan announced. We find that all legal procedures were properly followed. The Marvathi Consortium acted within their rights. No laws were broken. Silence fell over the hall. Helena did not shout. She did not cry. She did not beg. She smiled. "You have taught us something valuable today," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. It reached every corner of the vast chamber. "For 800 years, we thought we were your allies, your friends. We protected your shipping lanes. We fought your wars. We died for species who would not mourn us." She took a step forward. The guards tensed but did not move. "We made excuses for you. We told ourselves that things would get better. We believed that if we worked hard enough, if we proved ourselves enough, you would accept us as equals." Another step. 12 million people, farmers, scientists, children, families, burned alive because of paperwork. And you tell us no laws were broken. She stopped in the center of the hall. Every eye was upon her. "You are right. No laws were broken, because your laws were designed to allow this. Your order was built on the suffering of those you consider lesser. Your peace is paid for with the blood of the weak." Valkith stood. "Admiral, you will show proper respect." "Respect?" Helena turned to face him. "I respected you once. I admired you. I wanted to be like you. But now I see you clearly. You are not great. You are not wise. You are simply old. Old and cruel, and so convinced of your own superiority that you cannot see the truth. And what truth is that?" Valkith demanded. Helena's smile widened. It was cold and terrible and absolutely certain. "We are done." The words echoed through the hall. "What do you mean?" Morvan asked quietly. "I mean exactly what I said. Humanity withdraws from the Concordat. Effective immediately. Every human ship, station, and colony will be recalled to our own space. We will establish our borders. We will leave you to your perfect order." Murmurs of shock rippled through the assembly. "You cannot survive alone," Valkith said. "You are too young, too weak, perhaps." Helena turned and walked toward the exit. "But at least we will no longer die for those who consider us contamination." She stopped at the door and looked back one final time. "Good luck, Concordat. You are going to need it." Within 1 year, every human presence was gone from Concordat space. They did not attack. They did not threaten. They simply left. Warning beacons marked the border. Automated messages played on repeat. "You are entering human territory. You are not welcome. Turn back." The galaxy breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, the troublesome species was gone. Finally, there would be true peace. Valkith celebrated with his colleagues. Morvan said nothing. Deep in the archives, ancient records gathered dust. Warnings written 12 million years ago waited to be remembered, and in the darkness between galaxies, something that had been sleeping began to wake. It was hungry. It had been waiting so long, and the Guardians were finally gone. The first 10 years without humanity were wonderful. Ambassador Valkith often said it was the best decade of his long life. Trade flowed smoothly. Disputes were settled properly. The lesser species remembered their place in the natural order. No more humans rushing into conflicts that did not concern them. No more humans questioning ancient traditions. No more humans treating everyone as equals. The Concordat flourished. Or so it seemed. The first reports came from the galaxy's edge. A small outpost had gone silent. Communications had simply stopped. When a patrol ship arrived to investigate, they found the station intact but empty. No bodies, no signs of struggle. The crew had simply vanished. Valkith dismissed it as desertion. Probably criminals hiding from justice. A month later, 3 more stations went dark. Then a transport ship disappeared. Then a colony of 50,000 people. Then another. And another. The pattern was always the same. Communications would fail. Ships sent to investigate would find empty buildings, empty streets, empty homes. Food still on tables. Drinks still in cups. As if everyone had simply stood up and walked into the void. But there was something else. Something the reports mentioned but could not explain. Fear. The investigators felt it. A cold, creeping terror that crawled up their spines and wrapped around their hearts. A sense that something was watching. Something was waiting. Something was hungry. Many investigators refused to return to the affected areas. Some had to be hospitalized. A few went completely mad, screaming about shadows that moved and whispers that spoke inside their minds. Velketh finally brought the matter to the assembly. Pirates, he insisted. A new criminal organization. We must increase patrols. But High Arbiter Morvan was not convinced. He had been having dreams lately. Dark dreams of empty spaces between the stars. Dreams of something vast and terrible that existed in places the eye could not see. Dreams of hunger that had waited for millions of years. After the assembly, Morvan went to the Forbidden's archives. Every civilization had secrets it wanted to forget. The Concordat kept its secrets in a vault beneath the capital station. No one had entered in over 3 million years. Morvan had to break 7 seals and speak 12 dead languages just to open the door. Inside, he found records from before the Concordat existed. Ancient texts carved in stone and crystal. Warnings left by species long extinct, and a name that made his 4 hearts stop. The Hollow Ones. Morvan read through the night. His hands trembled. His breath came in short gasps. By morning, he understood everything. 12 million years ago, the galaxy had faced extinction. An enemy had come from beyond the stars. Not from another galaxy. From the spaces between galaxies. From dimensions that overlapped reality, but could not be seen or touched. The Hollow Ones thought they were not alive in any normal sense. They did not have bodies or ships or weapons. They existed as something like thoughts. Something like hunger. They fed on fear. Literally fed on it. The terror of sentient minds was their food. When they found a civilization, they would spread through it like a disease. They would enter minds while being slept. They would plant nightmares. They would grow fear like a crop. And when the fear was ripe, they would feast. Whole species had been consumed. Trillions of beings driven mad with terror, their minds eaten from the inside out. The Hollow Ones left nothing behind but empty husks and silent worlds. The galaxy had nearly died, but some species could not be consumed so easily. Some species felt fear differently. When threatened, they did not freeze or flee or submit. They got angry. They fought back. They felt hope even in hopeless situations. These emotions were poison to the Hollow Ones. Anger burned them. Defiance weakened them. Hope was like acid to their essence. The ancient coalition had used these species as weapons. They had stood against the darkness and pushed it back. They had forced the Hollow Ones to retreat to the void between galaxies, and then, slowly, over millions of years, the Concordat had destroyed them. Morvan read the list of species that had once protected the galaxy. Aggressive species. Emotional species. Troublesome species. Species that questioned authority and fought for the weak and never accepted the natural order of things. All gone now. Conquered or marginalized or driven to extinction by the Concordat's endless pursuit of order, all except one. Morvan dropped the ancient text. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. Humans. Humanity was the last of the guardian species. The last beings in the galaxy whose response to fear was rage. Whose response to threat was defiance. Whose response to hopelessness was stubborn. Burning hope. And the Concordat had driven them away. Velketh burst into the archives. His silver scales were pale with terror. "The Sithrani homeworld has gone dark," he said. 9 billion people. All communications lost. And the patrols. He swallowed. "The patrols are seeing things. Shadows that move. Shapes in the void. They feel fear unlike anything they have ever known." Morvan looked at his colleague. The arrogant ambassador was trembling like a child. "The Hollow Ones have returned," Morvan said quietly. "And we killed the only beings who could stop them. Then we must bring them back. The humans. We must apologize and beg for their help." Morvan shook his head slowly. "We burned 12 million of their people. We called them contamination. We celebrated when they left." He looked at the ancient warnings carved in stone. The words of species who had died to protect the galaxy that would forget them. Why would they ever help us now? The fall of the Concordat happened faster than anyone could have imagined. The Sithrani fleet was the largest in the galaxy. 10,000 warships carrying the most advanced weapons ever created. They gathered above their homeworld to face the enemy. They lasted 6 hours. Ambassador Velkith watched from a refugee transport as his people died. The ships did not explode. They did not burn. They simply stopped. Engines went dark. Weapons went cold. And inside, the crews went mad. The Hollow Ones did not kill with fire or blades. They killed with fear. They crawled into minds like worms. They found every terror, every nightmare, every secret dread. They made these fears real. They made them overwhelming. Sithrani soldiers saw their families dying before their eyes. They saw monsters from childhood stories. They saw their own bodies rotting while they still lived. The fear grew and grew until their minds shattered like glass dot, and then the Hollow Ones fed. When the feeding was done, nothing remained but empty husks. Bodies that still breathed but had nothing inside. No thoughts. No memories. No souls.hollow.vel, single quotes, K-Eat wept. He had never wept before in his 3,000 years of life. Now he could not stop. Within months, the pattern repeated across the galaxy. The Marvathi Consortium tried to negotiate. They sent their finest diplomats with offers of tribute, of service, of anything the enemy might want. The Hollow Ones did not negotiate. They did not want treasure or territory or power. They wanted only one thing. Fear. The Korath Empire tried to flee. They loaded their population onto generation ships and tried to escape to other galaxies. The Hollow Ones found them in the void between stars. The screaming lasted for weeks. Species that had endured for millions of years fell in months. The Concordat's great cities became graveyards. The ancient halls of power stood empty. The crystal pillars that had witnessed 12 million years of history now watched only silence and shadow. High Arbiter Morvan gathered the survivors. There were not many left. Perhaps 1 billion beings from a civilization that once numbered in the quadrillions. They huddled on a single station at the galaxy's core, waiting for the end. Why can we not fight them? Velkith demanded. He was a broken creature now. His scales had lost their shimmer. His pride had turned to ash. Our ancestors defeated them once. Why can we not do the same? Morvan pulled up ancient records. Images filled the air. Cave paintings from 100 dead worlds. Primitive drawings of small figures standing against vast darkness. In every image, the figures glowed with inner light. Our ancestors did not defeat them, Morvan said. They contained them. They pushed them back. And they did it with help. He showed more images. Species profiles. Psychological assessments. Records of beings who processed fear differently than most life forms. The Hollow Ones feed on fear, Morvan explained. Fear is sustenance to them. When they consume a mind filled with terror, they grow stronger. But some species do not feel fear the way we do. He pointed to one profile, a species called the Carthony. When threatened, the Carthony felt rage instead of fear. The Hollow Ones could not feed on rage. It burned them. Another profile, the Velith. When facing death, the Velith felt peace and acceptance. This emotion was poison to the Hollow Ones. More profiles. More species. The Turani, who felt defiance. The Mekith, who felt hope. The Sovani, who laughed in the face of terror. These were the guardian species, Morvan said. Beings who could stand against the Hollow Ones because their minds produced emotions that were toxic to the enemy. They were the galaxy's immune system. Velkith stared at the profiles. Where are they now? Morvan was silent for a long moment. The Carthony were considered too aggressive. We conquered them 8 million years ago. The Velith were too passive for our economy. We used them as servants until they died out. The Turani questioned our authority. We destroyed their homeworld. The Mekith and Sovani, he did not need to finish. Every guardian species had been eliminated, conquered or enslaved or marginalized into extinction. The Concordat had seen them as threats to order, troublemakers, nuisances. We killed them all, Velkith whispered. Every species that could protect us. We killed them because they made us uncomfortable. Not all of them. Morvan displayed one final profile. The image showed a bipedal species with soft skin and small eyes. The data described beings who were emotional, aggressive, illogical, and utterly impossible to control. Humans. When humans face fear, they get angry, Morvan said. When they face death, they fight harder. When everything seems hopeless, they find hope anyway. Their psychology is almost perfectly designed to resist the Hollow Ones. Velkith remembered every insult he had spoken about humanity. Every time he had called them lesser. Every law he had supported to keep them in their place. They were never the disease, he said slowly. They were the cure, yes. And we drove them away. We burned their people. We celebrated when they left. Yes, the station shook. Alarms began to wail. Outside the windows, shadows moved against the stars. Shadows that should not exist. Shadows that were hungry. The Hollow Ones had found them. Velkith fell to his knees. Terror gripped his heart. He could feel them touching his mind, searching for the fears hidden inside. We have to try, he gasped. We have to go to the humans. We have to beg. Morvan looked at the approaching darkness. In minutes, perhaps seconds, they would all be consumed. Then we must hurry. 3 ships fled through dying space dock behind them. The last Concordat station burned. Not with fire, but with silence. The Hollow Ones had consumed it. Billions of minds devoured. Billions of souls made empty. Velkith sat in the refugee vessel, surrounded by the last survivors of his species. Once, there had been trillions of Sithrani. Now, fewer than 1,000 remained. They huddled together like frightened children, waiting for the darkness to find them. Morvan guided the ships toward human space. The journey took 3 days. 3 days of jumping through systems that had once held thriving civilizations. Now they held only ghost worlds and empty stations and the lingering taste of fear. The human border appeared on sensors. Warning beacons flashed in the void. Automated messages played on repeat. You are entering human territory. You are not welcome. Turn back. The refugees did not turn back. They had nowhere else to go. For 3 days, they waited at the border. They sent messages on all frequencies. They begged. They pleaded. They apologized. Nothing.vel single quotes ke to lose hope. Why would the humans help? After everything the Concordat had done? After Kepler's hope? After centuries of contempt and cruelty? Then, on the 4th day, A single human ship emerged from the darkness. Thought it was small, unimpressive. It carried no visible weapons. The name painted on its hull read Kepler's Hope. II. The view screen activated. An old human female appeared. Her hair was white. Her face was lined with age. Her eyes held the weight of 30 years of exile. Admiral Helena Vance looked at the aliens who had once ruled the galaxy. The mighty Sithrani, now broken and begging. The ancient Arbiter, now humbled and afraid. "You want our help," she said. It was not a question. Velkev could not find words. He had spent his entire life speaking from positions of power. Now he had no power left. "We are begging," Morvan answered. "The Hollow Ones have consumed 80% of Concordat space. Trillions are dead. Trillions more will follow. We cannot stop them." Helena nodded slowly. "No, you cannot. We were wrong." Velkev finally found his voice. It came out cracked and broken. "Everything we did, everything we said, the way we treated your people, we were wrong. You burned 12 million of us over paperwork. Yes, you called us contamination. Yes, you celebrated when we left." Velkev bowed his head. Yes. Helena studied the broken ambassador. She had dreamed of this moment. For 30 years, she had imagined what she would say to the beings who had destroyed her world. The anger she would show. The revenge she would take. But looking at them now, she felt only sadness. "You never understood what made us dangerous," she said. "You thought it was our ships, our weapons, our numbers. But those were never our true strength." She stood from her chair. Behind her, other humans appeared. Soldiers and scientists, old and young. They looked at the aliens with expressions that the Concordat had never learned to read. "Our strength is this," Helena continued. "When the universe tells us to be afraid, we get angry. When something threatens our people, we do not run. We do not hide. We do not submit. We fight. We fight until we win or until we are ash. And even our ash would spite the enemy that made it." The view screen flickered. Suddenly, it showed more than just a small ship. It showed what lay behind the human border. Not 17 star systems, as the Concordat had believed. Hundreds. Hidden stations filled the void. Massive warships bristled with weapons the galaxy had never seen. Entire fleets waited in the darkness, ready for a war that humanity had always known would come. "You thought we left because we were weak," Helena said. "We left because we knew this day would come. The Hollow Ones were always out there, waiting, watching. We knew because we remembered what the Concordat forgot." She smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator about to hunt. "You wanted to know what fear truly means? Fear is not what the Hollow Ones bring. Fear is what happens when humanity decides something must be destroyed." Morvan felt tears running down his ancient face. "You will help us?" "Not for you." Helena's voice was hard. "For the innocent. For the children who never hurt anyone. For the species who were just as oppressed by the Concordat as we were. We will not let the Hollow Ones have them." She turned to her crew. "Signal the fleet. Begin the advance." Across human space, engines roared to life. Ships that had waited 30 years began to move. Soldiers who had trained for this moment prepared for battle. "How will you fight them?" Velkev asked. "They cannot be killed with weapons. They attack the mind itself." Helena laughed. It was a sound of genuine amusement. "They feed on fear," she said. "They grow stronger when their prey is terrified. But what happens when their prey is not afraid?" She pressed a button. Throughout the human fleet, speakers activated. Music began to play. Drums and horns, and the sound of billions of human voices raised in defiance. "We have spent 30 years preparing for this. We have studied the Hollow Ones. We have learned their weaknesses. We have developed weapons that broadcast human emotion into the void. Anger, defiance, hope, joy, every feeling that burns them. You have turned your emotions into weapons. Morvan whispered, "We have turned ourselves into weapons." The human fleet crossed the border. Thousands of ships carrying beings who had spent 30 years dreaming of this moment. Beings who did not fear the darkness. Beings who would teach the darkness to fear them. Alana Vance stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the stars pass. Somewhere ahead, the Hollow Ones waited. They had consumed trillions. They had destroyed civilizations. They believed they were unstoppable. They were wrong. "This is Admiral Vance to all ships," she announced. Her voice carried across the fleet, carried across the galaxy, carried into the void where the Hollow Ones lurked. "The Second Long War has begun. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. We fight for those the Concordat abandoned. We fight because someone must stand between the darkness and the light." She raised her fist. Around her, billions of humans did the same. Let the Hollow Ones learn what the galaxy forgot. Let them remember why they ran 12 million years ago. Let them understand what fear truly means. Her smile widened. Behind her, humanity smiled with her. "We are coming, and we are not afraid." The fleet surged forward. The darkness trembled, and for the first time in 12 million years, the Hollow Ones knew what it meant to face something that refused to fear. The war had begun. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never forget again.